Hidden books of the Bible. What was left out? Imagine this. You're in the oldest library in town, and the librarian leans in to whisper, "See those shelves over there? Totally off limits. The books are a little too spicy." Well, that's pretty much what happened to a whole stack of ancient writings that used to hang out right alongside Genesis, Psalms, and Matthew. For centuries, Jews and Christians read these books aloud, copied them onto pricey parchment, and even preached from them. Then, bit by bit, they just vanished from most Bibles. Today, we're sneaking into that restricted section to check out the stories, prophecies, and head-scratchers that never made the final cut and find out who did the cutting. Let's play a quick numbers game. There are about 24 books that everyone just lumps together as the Apocrypha. Now, Catholic Bibles include 7 of them, Protestant Bibles include 0, and every single one of them was, at some point, competing for the same shelf space as a book like Isaiah or Revelation. So what was so scandalous, so explosive, that these pages ended up on the Do Not Bind list? Section 1. Meet the Almost Bibles. Let's flash back to Jerusalem around 200 BCE. Greek is the cool language everyone's speaking. Rome is the new superpower on the block, and Jewish writers are pumping out new material faster than Netflix drops new shows. This is when we get books like Tobit, Judith, 1 and 2 Maccabees, The Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, and Baruch, plus some extended cut versions of Esther and Daniel. We're talking comedies, war epics, spy thrillers, and even a dragon-slaying scene that your Sunday school teacher definitely skipped. For over 1,000 years, Greek-speaking Jews and a whole lot of early Christians treated these like actual scripture. This wasn't fan fiction. It was mainstream. Section 2. Why they got the red pen. So, if they were so popular, why did later church councils basically slam the gate on them? It usually boils down to 4 main reasons. First, language. Most of these books were originally written in Greek, not Hebrew. Eventually, some influential rabbis drew a line in the sand. If Moses didn't write it, and we can't read it in Hebrew, it's out. Second, the date. They were all written between 400 and 100 BCE, which was after the time many believed the age of prophets had closed. Third, doctrine. 2 Maccabees, for example, has a story that praises a mother who watches her 7 sons die, believing they'll all be physically resurrected. For some early Christians who thought of the afterlife in more spiritual, floaty cloud terms, that was a little too physical. And fourth, politics. Around 400 CE, when a scholar named Jerome was translating the Bible into Latin, he labeled these books Apocrypha, which just means hidden. Centuries later, Protestants pointed to Jerome's opinion, while Catholics at the Council of Trent doubled down and kept them. And just like that, you've got centuries of confusion. Section 3. The Prophecy You Never Heard. Let me introduce you to a book called 2 Esdras, written right after Rome destroyed Jerusalem in 70 CE. In it, a man named Ezra basically files a cosmic complaint with God, asking, "Why do the wicked always seem to win?" God answers him with these wild visions, like a lion that turns into an eagle, which is a stand-in for Rome. The eagle's feathers get plucked out one by one. It's the same kind of apocalyptic playbook that John uses in the book of Revelation. 2 Esdras also predicts things like 10 periods of intense sorrow, a 400-year countdown to the Messiah, and a final judgment where a record of everyone's deeds gets opened up for all to see. It was hope for the oppressed, but a real headache for the bishops. Section 4. Angels Gone Wild. Ever wonder where pop culture got the idea that fallen angels taught humanity how to wear makeup or work with metal? You can thank the Book of 1 Enoch. Ethiopian Christians kept it in their Bible, but pretty much everyone else dropped it. The New Testament book of Jude actually quotes from it directly. The plot is this: 200 rebel angels land on Mount Hermon, marry human women, and have kids. The Nephilim, who are basically half-angel giants that completely wrecked the planet. So God floods the whole place and chains up the bad guy angels under the desert until Judgment Day. It also includes guided tours of heaven and hell that were written 1,000 years before Dante. If you ever felt like Genesis chapter 6 needed a cosmic prequel, 1 Enoch is the show for you. Section 5. Wisdom that sounds like Proverbs on espresso. The Wisdom of Solomon, which was written in Alexandria about a century before Jesus, says that wisdom is a breath of the power of God. and talks about immortality centuries before the Apostle Paul did, saying, "The souls of the righteous are in the hand of God." You might hear it quoted at funerals, but most people in the pews don't realize it's missing from their Bibles. Then there's Sirach, which is basically a 2,000-year-old self-help book. It gives advice like, "My child, if you aspire to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for testing." Both books really push for loyalty to God, giving to the poor, and watching what you say. All classic themes from Proverbs, just with a little Greek philosophy mixed in. Section 6. The Action Movie Scrolls. You want explosions? 1 Maccabees is all about the guerrilla warfare led by Judas Maccabeus against a king who tried to ban Jewish practices like the Sabbath and circumcision. The story climaxes with the rededication of the temple. And yep, that's the origin story of Hanukkah. Without this book, the holiday has almost no historical anchor. Then 2 Maccabees throws in angelic cavalry charging across the sky, and a mother who basically cheers her kids on as they're martyred. And in the book of Judith, you get the original femme fatale spy, a pious widow who strolls into an enemy general's tent, gets him drunk, and then beheads him with his own sword. These stories were huge for Jewish identity under foreign rule and inspired later resistance. But you can see how they might sit awkwardly next to New Testament calls to love your enemies. Section 7. Do they still speak today? So the question for us today is, are these books dangerous or just different? I mean, Ethiopian Orthodox Christians include Enoch and another book called Jubilees, and they've been worshipping peacefully since the 4th century. Catholics call these other books deuterocanonical, sort of a second-tier canon that's useful for teaching, but not for creating brand new doctrine. Protestants mostly leave them out, though any good study Bible will probably have them tucked in the middle or in an appendix. Scholars dig through them to understand the theology of the era. Historians use them to fill in gaps the Old Testament skips. And novelists are still stealing their wild imagery. So are they hidden? Yeah, but are they dead? Not even close. CTA 1. If any of these book titles are new to you, go ahead and tap the like button so the algorithm knows you're a curious person. And comment below. Which of these hidden books should we do a deep dive on next? Enoch's crazy angel drama or Judith's spy thriller? Section 8. Why the debate isn't over. You know, questions about which books belong in the Bible pop up all the time. Kind of like those annoying Wi-Fi login pages. The Dead Sea Scrolls proved that a lot of these supposedly fringe ideas, like angelic ladders, different calendars, and messianic math, were actually mainstream way before any church councils were held. And newly translated texts, like the Gospel of Thomas or the Apocalypse of Peter, remind us that the first few centuries of Christianity were kind of a theological mosh pit. The church eventually settled on 4 Gospels, but that itch to see who the runners-up were never really goes away. Every time a new tomb is found or an ancient manuscript shows up, the headlines scream, "Lost Bible Books Found," and millions of people click. We just can't resist a good cover-up story, even when the truth is a lot more about editing than conspiracy. Section 9. How to read them without losing your mind. Here are 3 quick tips for reading these books. First, treat them like historical commentary. They're fascinating, maybe even inspired, but don't use them as your baseline for doctrine, unless your particular tradition does. Second, watch the timeline. If you just jump from Malachi in the Old Testament straight to Matthew in the New, you're skipping over 400 years of history. If you slip 1 or 2 Maccabees into that gap, suddenly people like King Herod, the Pharisees, and all those Roman taxes make a lot more sense. And third, just enjoy the creativity. Ancient writers processed their trauma through storytelling, just like we use sci-fi to wrestle with things like war and grief. Let their imagination stretch yours a little. Section 10. The Big So What. These hidden books remind us that the Bible didn't just parachute down from heaven, all leather-bound with a table of contents. It was argued over, voted on, and copied by candlelight. Sometimes it was even banned. Wrestling with why a book like Judith or 2 Esdras got benched forces us to ask what we really value in Scripture. Is it perfect historical accuracy, neat and tidy theology, or just raw, honest encouragement? More importantly, they're big themes like divine justice, restoration, and life after death still speak to anyone who's freaked out by a hostile world or personal tragedy. So maybe they aren't Scripture to you, but if you ignore them, It's like you're binge watching the director's cut of a series with some of the most pivotal scenes deleted. CTA 2. Go ahead and subscribe and ring that bell if you want more ancient secrets dragged into the daylight. Up next, we're diving into how the Nephilim became rock star villains all over the internet, and whether Genesis 6 is hiding some bonus verses. Conclusion. So, there you have it. The books that almost made it into the Bible give us warrior moms, drunken generals, skyscraper-sized giants, and apocalyptic countdowns. They were cherished, condemned, and chained up in monasteries. And now they've been scanned for anyone to read at 2 in the morning. They might be missing from the Bible on your nightstand, but their fingerprints are smudged all over our faith, our art, and our pop culture. So read them, argue with them, and enjoy the plot twists, because understanding what got left out might just change how you read everything that got left in.